streams that look kind of junky. I think we can all kind of agree that there's no rhyme or reason where you find them. And sometimes they truly surprise you in less than desirable locations. All right, so next up, we got Bill Schroeder with the Little Miami River Conservancy.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and really thrilled to have an opportunity to share some things with you about the potential for collaboration between volunteers and experts. That's Little Miami Conservancy is an all-volunteer group, but we have some pretty serious people who are really interested in technical aspects, and in particular for over the last 35 or 40 years, we've been concerned about the mussel populations along the Little Miami River and why they've been declining. So I'm going to try to accomplish two things with this presentation. I'm going to try to focus on the collaborations which we've had with people in this group and other people, and also do that by taking you through the last probably 24 months of our work on mussel silos. And so we'll just, with that introduction, I'll tell you a little bit about the Little Miami Conservancy, but I'm hitting this button and it's not going up and down, or
I had the issue before. I had to oh, there we go. That moves.
Okay, yeah, there we are now. Okay, that's good. We've been incorporated since 1967, so we've got like 55 years of working on the Little Miami River to conserve it, also to restore areas and so on. Little Miami River is a national and state scenic river. It was the first scenic river in Ohio, and it's 1,758 square miles in the watershed, and over 110 miles of linear water flow there in the main stem. And we started our stewardship with something that looked like this way back in 1967 with cleanups and so on, because we recognize that restoration includes restoring habitat, cleaning up the river and so on, because if we're going to do anything on the mussel side of things, we have to have habitats that's suitable for them. And so we still do this. This is a rather recent picture, and we can't figure out why these things continue to propagate, but we're thinking about tagging them. We're thinking about tagging them to see how many times the same one shows up. But and from that, we've gone all the way to some rather high-tech stuff we've done with Yellow Springs and Xylem brand, and we have installed a system of monitors for dissolved oxygen that we continue to collect data on in order to try to spot trouble when oxygen isn't right. And mussels, our connection with mussels goes way back. We started really way before I was ever a part of it, but there is one of the great things we have is a collection of data over a 30-year period at the same locations on the Little Miami River, so we can compare in 10-year cycles what's happening. And what's happening, of course, is that in many instances there's a decline both in species and in numbers. So that's something we're really alarmed about, and we really want to do something about that. It was mentioned earlier that that we have this poster here, and I was when I realized I couldn't pick the device up and show it, I made a picture of it. Now, the connection here is that we started, we being my predecessors, with the freshwater mussels of Ohio, the Waters and Michael Hogarth and David Stansberry collaborated on that. And we took that volume and analyzed it and broke it down so that you can see side by side the mussels, pictures of the mussels, identification of them, and also the host fish side by side. So that gave us some information about the relationships between the different mussel species and the host fish. And Mike Hogarth has been instrumental in the 30 plus year survey to show where we're going with our populations and so on. And his most recent publication of that is called Report, I can hardly read that, it's a report on the second reexamination of the mussels of the Little Miami River. Second reexamination means there was the original survey, the first reexamination, and the second reexamination, and the amount of data in that, it's like a 30 to 50 page with the appendix, all about the Little Miami River. So when we get serious about mussels, we've got a database that gives us history that really helps. And so our collaboration on this most recent project began with a phone call that we made to Monty McGregor and invited ourselves down to his lab at in Frankfurt. And he was very welcoming, and we made a date. And he said to us, I hope that we can also introduce you to Wendell because he's in and out a lot, and I don't know whether he'll be here or not. And so we knew who Wendell was, of course, from his publications and from things that we had read that he'd been involved with. So we went down and met with Monty, and this is a kind of a God thing, I think, because we were there. Wendell wasn't there, and we were seated around the table down at the center, and we said, how can we help? You know, we had been through the lab and saw the miraculous things that he's doing down there. What can we do to support you, and how can we help? And we just got into the beginning of that discussion, and I saw a shadow go by the door, and here was Wendell. So we invited him in, and we had an initial conversation with about 5 of us and 2 of them on the subject, how can we help? And so Wendell said, well, how would you like to make some concrete mussel silos? You know, we didn't have the technology to do anything, you know, really deep into the science of it, but most of us knew that concrete is just a bag of stuff that you mix with water, and that's a starting point. And Monty said, you don't have to worry about technical people doing this, because we got a Boy Scout troop down in Kentucky that's been making them for us. And so if these, and they've done a fine job. So we went down, and Monty said, I've made this video, and he referred to this. He talked about his video yesterday, and it really is a very informative video. But if you can believe this, he actually talks faster on the video than he does in person. So we had to watch the video about 20 times before we could figure out everything that he was saying. But eventually, and we learned how to make the silos, and we sent pictures of them, crossing our fingers. We hope this is right. We send pictures of our silos, and Wendell said, those will be great. You know, I thought he was going to have to see them and weigh them and all this kind of stuff, you know, but we have 2 of them here, and you'll see more of them in the presentation. Whoop. Okay, let's see here. No, I'll get it. Yeah, I skipped it again. Okay, so this is, of course, a picture of Monty, and he's holding one of these silos, and that one really looks like it's bulletproof, and it is. I mean, that thing is really built, and he features that and shows how he made it in his video, but he doesn't mention that he's got tools in his house and in the shop down there that can bend metal, and practically has a machine shop and all that. So we had to, but he said, look, you know, this is a basic thing. You can make it, you can make modifications to this. You don't have to make it exactly like this. And so, and there's a picture of the inside of his lab. You saw some of that stuff yesterday, but so we agreed that we would try to do that, and we made our first concrete silo on December the 30th of 21, December the 30th of 21. And oh, I also want to give credit to Chris Lorenz, because he was also welcoming and helped us with by inviting us to this facility, and we went electrofishing and so on. He was assisted us in figuring out how we could obtain electrofishing equipment, which we did, and we actually got licensed, and we have that. And also Dr. Barnhart from Missouri State, he has actually written more about silos than anybody I've ever seen, and he's been using them for like 20 years and has helped evolve different designs, but they all look pretty much alike. Now, I want to impress on you, because I want you to understand what a dedicated, focused volunteer can do under the mentorship of the experts. So first of all, don't worry about the materials, because there's a bag of concrete, and all you need to do is add water to that. And that concrete bag there you can get for less than $5 a bag, and you could probably make 3 or 4 silos with that one bag. The spray stuff that you need to put in the mold, you can steal from your wife's kitchen, so that's free. And the rest of it is really common materials. What you're looking at there is the insert housing that goes inside the silo, and that's a shower drain screen over the top. When you buy those, and they're not expensive. The PVC, it's common size PVC that you can buy at Menards or Lowe's or any place like that. Not too expensive, but you need to cut it with a saw that will make a flush cut. And other materials, we go to Tractor Supply and buy 175 feet of this heavy duty wire, and we can cut those in 19-inch sections and bend them and make the legs that you see in the right-hand corner there. And they get molded into the wet concrete, and that works very, very well. And below there is our collection of actual molds, starting with a Walmart mold, the red ones on the left and so on. And we got those molds, we got those bowls or salad bowls from Walmart, and they cost less than $2 a piece. So there's not a lot of expense there. And what we are after here, what we really want is to take that, which you're looking at, and I know those of you who know Wendell will recognize that those are his fingers. To take that and end up with this. These are, his fingers aren't in that picture, but that's our goal. That's the goal of the use of the silos, because you take those Blachidia and put them in that silo and locate them at pre-chosen selected places where we think we'll get information about whether they survive and how much they grow. And you can see that 25-cent piece there. These were very, this was our most successful growth, although we didn't do the measurements. I'll show you what we did. We actually collected these, put them in bags under instructions from Wendell, and then froze them and sent them to him. And he just told me earlier today that he has measured them all, and we're going to get the data so that we will be able to tell how much they've grown. Now, you see in the upper right hand corner, I said to these in 70 days. Well, 90 days is the protocol. And Wendell took us to our first deployment as part of his project. It's, I believe, a 13-state project in which this kind of work is being done in locations in the Midwest. But his protocol was 90 days, but by the time we learned how to do all this and we're ready to do it ourselves, that is the Little Miami Conservancy, under supervision of Mike Hogarth, we didn't deploy them until July. The first deployment was by Wendell, I think on June the 6th. So we think we got a darn good result. We'll find out when Wendell tells us how big they really are. We think we got a good result in 70 days. And I signed an affidavit that we didn't go in there and put steroids in there, that this is really a natural growth period for one of the sites that we had. Now, once we learned how to make these things, we had to figure out how we were going to do it because it was winter, and we had to make these things for deployment in June. And we shopped around for a couple of locations where we finally figured out that what Monty said was true when he said, you can make these things in your basement. You have to get your wife's consent on that. But that wasn't too tough. And I had a wood shop down there, and so we converted it to a small factory. And we got to the point where we can actually make 5 of these a day. You had to plan to have all the materials and so on. But we ended up, and this shows, that's our laundry tub to the right. And that's one of our compadres pouring the concrete into the molds. And then you set them on a bench or table for a curing period. And, a lot of this is, it's not 100% precise. You have to figure out how thick the concrete should be and how long you should cure it and so on. And the first one that we made is shown in this picture. Now, we volunteers, we like to help, but we also want to stay out of the way of the main track of the work. And so we did this on our own, and we didn't write it up or say anything because the expression on my partner's face here says it all. And whatever you think he's thinking, you're probably right. This is the top view. And one of the things I hoped we would be able to discuss is the Bernoulli principle. I don't know whether you all are familiar with that. I call it the airplane wing principle because it all relates to the shape of the dome. The reason airplanes fly, I learned when I was in junior high school, was because the design of the wing has a curve on the top and it's flat on the bottom. So when you push that in a lateral manner, you're going to get unequal pressure because it takes longer for the air to fly over the dome than it does underneath. And so I can understand that. And I actually proved it once when I put some stuff on the top of my car and went 80 miles an hour down the highway until I found out it wasn't there anymore. So the reason that works here is because we want the water with nutrients to go in the bottom and come out the top. And there's a bottom inside there is a white cylinder that's removable and has screens on the top and the bottom. So in the process of deployment, you put the tiny Lochidia in there inside the screen insert, protected from predators and escape and all that kind of stuff, and put it in a place where the current creates the Bernoulli principle. So there's a constant replenishing. It's like a cafeteria of nutrients coming up from the bottom and out the top. And it's important to choose good locations for this. If you don't have enough current, it's not going to work very well. And unfortunately, if you don't have a good location, they can be vandalized, or fishermen some do love to check these things out if they're very visible. So that's why we do the camo job. We also tried to prove and did prove Monty's statement that kids could do this. This picture is from a Isaac Walton League camp out in which one of the things that the kids did was to actually make some of these silos. And one of them is here. It's, I think it's the one on the left, right next to the sink. And this is one of the gals. These were all ninth graders from the Waldorf, Cincinnati Waldorf schools, and they were here doing an outdoor project for 4 nights. And you can see the small PVC pipes there. They're about 1-inch pipes. After you've poured the concrete, you put the legs down in there, and you use those small concrete pipes to suspend them with a 1-inch height. And that's, then you take that wood block out of the center when they're all set, and you end up with a silo. And this is what our setup looked like at the Isaac Walton Lodge. And we started with these things and did the concrete work and so on. Then the last thing I mentioned was the camo, which we thought was pretty important, but Wendell didn't really think it was, and he was probably right, because this is a two-edged sword. We don't want people exploring and pulling these things out of the water. It's really not practical to put a message on them saying, please leave this alone. So we tried this camo stuff, but we didn't really realize that we were going to have to find these things again. So what happened was we began to worry about that. Now, I want to digress for just a minute. We also had an eDNA project for fish only, which we use in the Little Miami to confirm the diversity of fish species there. And it's an amateur kit. It's not intended to achieve level 3 recognition. And it also is pretty dependent upon operator not making errors. So just a few pictures of that. We have kids and some of our volunteers taking the samples at different places and submitting them to the manufacturer, which is also the laboratory. And you get the whole package for $85, and that includes the lab work and a complete list of the species that are there, pre-packaged, and stick it in the mail and send it to the lab. It does take a while to get the results because they're doing a lot of other things too. Another one of our collaborations with the Ohio State University. They have a collaboration with the with the Columbus Zoo, and they're doing the similar mussel research, but they are not at this moment at the level that the Kentucky Frankfurt group is, but we're hopeful that they will be soon. So Wendell took us out. Those are our silos in the lower right-hand corner. He brought a crew with him, and we asked him if we could shadow and learn about deployment. And he said, sure. I said, how many people can we bring? He said, well, if you bring half a dozen people, we can find things for them to do and help us. And I said, but how many can we bring? He said, bring as many as you want. So we really had a nice group of folks. There's Mike Hogarth on the right, and one of our volunteers. And you can see again, there's Wendell is on the left there with his back turned, and that's one of his got a crew that came along and helped, and everybody else in that picture is a volunteer. So we had a good group of volunteers. We learned a lot, and this is I put this slide in there to show you the kind of things that you have to really be careful about is water temperature, for one, because you get these mussels in, and we put them in coolers. They have hatchery water when you receive them, and I asked Wendell, what would happen if we didn't have hatchery water and we just used tap water? And he said they would all be dead in about 3 minutes. So you have to be careful about your water. We take them down in hatchery water, and then we get stream water, and we do a mixing process with a really good temperature control until our goal is within 1 to 2 degrees of the stream temperature. So, and then you have to, once you've made the deployment, you have to make a record and your field notes about where you were and how far it was from a landmark and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is a picture of one that's been in the river for 70 days. It really held up pretty well. And here is a picture of our first retrieval. I thought it was really going to be tough to find these things, and we had a little trouble with some of them. But for the most part, we had another God thing. We had the most beautiful weather and the clearest water conditions that I've ever seen on the Little Miami River. So our guys went out there and just walked around and, hey, there's one. And you can see at the bottom of the staff a dome-shaped thing. I wouldn't have seen that myself, but these guys picked them out right away. And there it is up close. And so that proves what Wendell said was you don't have to worry too much about the about the camouflage, because they have their way of taking care of that. Now, once we took the domes out, we washed out the mussels and cleaned them up and marked them. This is all per Wendell's directions, with the location. Each silo has its own bag, and we ended up, we took a bunch of pictures, but we ended up freezing them and sending them to Wendell, and he graciously has agreed to measure them and give us the data that we could get from the results that we had. And I put this slide in there because part of this is is educating the local area and the landowners and so on. And it was amazing how welcoming they were about what we were doing, the people who own the property and so on. And so we sent them this email of a picture of what we found on this one location. And the guy shot back that he thought that was really cool. And so we're welcome there anytime to do more research. And this is my last slide. As of this moment, all of these silos have served their first year of service, and they're in the backyard of a small warehouse that we have, ready for next year. And it reminds me of every time I walk into the backyard and look, I hear a sound of mussels coming from inside, like the sled dogs are. You know, they jump, they all want to go. Yeah, they jump on the tops of their houses and they take me, take me. And we have an arrangement, understanding with the Ohio State University lab, that they are planning and are in the process of producing a deployment for 2023. And it's not a sure shot thing. Nobody can guarantee what we're going to get, but we're sure hoping to do a deployment in 2023. So